All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Beyond 22 Basketball. You see it right here. We are ready to have a good show today. However, Clemson Tigers not playing as great as they had been pre-COVID. I want to show you a couple of things today as to why that is. Some of it's rust. Some of it's Virginia played really well. Georgia Tech played really well. Both shot the ball extraordinarily well. But it's just as much Clemson's reasoning for them shooting the ball well as it is them actually shooting it well. I have my main man Faxon here. He's right on the other side of this camera. Faxon, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk about some hoops, even though it's been kind of a disappointing week for the Tigers. Come back down to earth a little bit, but still excited to be here and talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was rough all the way around. But after we get done with that, we're going to talk a little bit about the week in review. Not just Clemson, but there were some other big games that happened in conference. Syracuse got a good win over Miami. You go Pitt. They beat a good Duke team at home. Pitt is a surprise team along with Georgia Tech for a lot of people. I knew Georgia Tech was going to be good the whole time, Faxon, but Pitt, they have come out and surprised a lot, especially Justin Champagnie, who looks like he could be Conference Player of the Year.
Yeah, and Justin Champagnie's got 20 and 10 in 4 consecutive games now, including I think he had 25 and 15 or more boards against Duke in this last outing at home. And I've just never seen a wing like him with more motor on the glass and more determination because he's not that tall. He's only 6'5", 6'6", but he just wants it more than everyone else. He can jump out of the gym. So really impressive stuff from him and the Pitt Panthers so far. And maybe what we thought was going to be a win for the Tigers on the schedule before the season is now looking more like a question mark. So it should be interesting to see how they match up later in the campaign.
Well, it's a gritty bunch. And if they're able to play as well as they have been and rebound as well as they have been, they're going to be a handful for anybody they play. We also have Faxon's Mid-Major Player of the Week, Big Fax. Got somebody from UNCG. We'll bring that up shortly, as well as we're going to look ahead to the next 5 or 6 games. Thank you to Gabe DeVoe for coming in and asking the questions. We've got to bring Bobby Buckets in. If Bobby Buckets wants to make an appearance, Bobby Buckets needs to make an appearance. We're going to try to find a way to get him on camera, if not next week, but the week after. I think that could be done, don't you, Fax?
We will figure out a technical way to get Gabe in here.
We will
100%.
find a way. But first, Clemson struggled. It was a tough one. They shot the ball really well. It felt like their offense was starting to get back outside of turnovers. 20 turnovers. We're going to go ahead and slide it to the coach's corner. 20 turnovers, that won't get it done, Fax.
No, and I mean, we talk about Clemson's offense in this game. Shooting the ball, when you look at the stats, just the team statistics, really good shooting performance from the Tigers and pretty much everyone on the team. But the turnovers are what killed, and Georgia Tech was running, for the first part of the game, forced a lot of turnovers and sort of a high 1-3-1 zone press and just caused havoc for the Tigers early on. Yeah,
it's been difficult all the way around, but Georgia Tech, you have to give them credit. They have high-level guards. Are they that deep? No, they're not. But, man, have they been shooting the lights out, especially come conference time. We talked a little bit about Michael DeVoe and how talented he is. He showed it, 6 of 6 from the three-point line to go along with several other guys. Moses Wright was fantastic. He was showing his athleticism, dunking off drives. But the one thing that the Tigers did not do, they did not communicate properly, especially in semi-break situations, both off misses and makes. And to be honest with you, that's a little worrisome for me, Faxon, because that's not a physical thing. That's more so than anything. That's just mentally not being where you're supposed to be.
And, you know, there are things that I thought the Tigers did really well in their first 10 games, even in the loss to Virginia Tech. Could have been better in that game, but I didn't think that was a bad showing on either end necessarily from the Tigers. And these last 2 performances have just been uncharacteristic based off of what we saw in the first 10 games of the season. And it's concerning going forward because, like you said, these aren't things on the court. This is just mental errors and not communicating with each other. And hopefully the mindset can get fixed going forward because these next couple games in the ACC are not going to be easy.
Well, I think it's important to mention, too, that Virginia has enough shooters around the floor that they're going to be able to knock down shots, even tough ones, but they haven't really had to work too hard whenever Clemson played them. And then Georgia Tech as well, they were able to move the ball. They have high-level guards that are able to make tough passes in really tight spaces. I'm going to show you a couple of clips here. Poor communication to start out with. They had some guys, this is after a missed shot. Could have been a foul, but John Bayer, he misses his shot. John Newman's on the ground. John Bayer's on the ground. They're off to the races. Here is Chase Hunter in the corner, not pointing and talking. What's the most important thing in a drive or in a fast break situation? What scores? The ball. Chase Hunter has to take the ball in this situation. You have guys running back late. It's his responsibility to point, talk, figure out where the matchups are going to be. Here's your situation. You have Kyle Sturdivant in the corner, hasn't shot the ball great from 3. Know your scouting report a little bit. Jordan Usher hasn't been great all season, but the ball scores. You have to make sure you get to the ball. As you see right here, you have 2 guys, no communication. No communication. That's not a physical thing. That's not a few days off thing. That's a talking thing. That is something that I am sure they are running for today. They have to do a better job of communicating with each other. That back line of defense in a semi-break situation is crucial. And if you have 2 running to the ball or running away from the ball, you're going to have all kinds of issues all year. As you see, Jordan Usher knocks down the 3 ball. Here's another example against Virginia. The same thing is persisting. No communication on makes or misses on this particular instance. It's a miss. What happens? Guys don't get back. You have 4 guys running. You have to talk and match. You see Amir's trying to point and talk, but it's taking too long for guys to get there. The sense of urgency to get back and communicate is not where it needs to be yet. Before this COVID break, Faxon, they were significantly better in the communication department.
Yes, and #1 defensive team in the country, according to Kim Pop, and plenty of other sites and metrics. This was a top 5 defensive team in the country on every single, and a big part of that, like you said, is this communication on fast breaks. And Clemson seemed to be so attentive and forcing so many turnovers, even in situations where they're getting counterattacked and on the fast break because they're communicating with each other and able to get them in uncomfortable spots. And then you go and you get 85 and 83 hung on you back-to-back games. And like you're saying, this is a big part of the reason why. It's just being lazy. And it's stuff that's fixable with a mentality, but I think the COVID break kind of took away some of the edge for the Tigers that they had the entire season.
Well, here's Amir Sims. You saw him pointing, hey, get that guy, get that guy. He needs to be a little bit more forceful. That's Clyde Trapp. He's the first person back. He needs to be pointing, talking, and figuring this thing out. It's taking too long, and then when you're in ACC play, you can't give these guys these shots. And the closeouts, that right there is too easy. You have to close out, high hands, stay low. Here I am talking about defense facts, and I had never played defense. But my point is, from a coach's point of view, this is a problem. Get out there. Don't let them get by so easily. And then they're going to have a wide open shot in a Virginia team that doesn't take a lot of transition shots. So here it is. Murphy's able to knock it in. Here's another example. Off a made basket. Lack of communication. Look, the ball is pushed up. A wide open 3 that takes too long for the defense to get there. And I'm going to show you that this is a problem because it was Clyde Trapp that made the layup. This communication has to be better. Where's Nick Honor? He knows he needs to pressure the ball. John Newman's down there trying to get a rebound. Alex Hemingway, if you aren't shooting a 3, you better run through the free throw line. If you're a corner shooter and you don't get the ball, you run through the free throw line for a potential offensive rebound, but you're also making sure you get back in transition and you're communicating. This cannot happen. He is wide open the entirety of the play. Look how far, I mean, I have to commend Clyde's effort, but he doesn't need to work that hard if he's communicating at a higher rate. Watch the play. He gets back. It's still not as hard as what you probably would like to see, but that's happening entirely too quickly. Jordan Usher, not typically a great shooter, able to knock another one down. He was much better than he's been all season. Jordan Usher, he's had his share of issues. He whines a little bit too much, but he plays hard. He's athletic. I knew he had an explosive game in him. It just happened to come against the Tigers.
Yeah, 21 points for Usher, 8 of 12 from the field, 5 of 8 from deep, and this was, like you said, this was his breakout game. And we saw multiple Georgia Tech players have these sort of breakout games, and specifically Jordan Usher. Moses Wright had a really good game, probably his best game of the season as well. And then, as you said, DeVoe shot 6 of 6 from beyond the arc. Alvarado had a bad game for his Sanders. I think he was dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury sustained in the first half, but it's concerning that who most would regard their best player did pretty much nothing, and the Tigers still got blown out last night.
Well, even though Alvarado wasn't doing a whole lot in the points category, he was still making some serious passes. And you're going to see right here. Clemson, another thing, their inability to guard the ball has become an issue over the last 2 games. Prior to these last 2 games, all season, they've been really good. I'm not sure if it's a sense of urgency, if they're not getting up close enough. I'm not sure quite what it is. But they're letting Georgia Tech, they're letting Virginia get way too far in the lane before they finally stop them. Once they get to that elbow area, they either need to chest up to try to get them to back off, but you can't keep letting them come in. So I'm going to show you a couple of possessions here. They are getting too deep in the paint. And this is after a made bucket. And this is when it all started to unravel for Clemson, whenever they started giving up a lot of points. So as you can see, I think that's Kyle Sturdivant over on the side. And Georgia Tech's hard to guard. This is too much. This is too much. There comes a point to where you're going to have to stop him before you get to the block. As you can see, DeVoe never picks up his dribble. He continues to probe, reattack, probe, reattack until he gets to where he wants to go. Eventually, you're going to have to chest him up a little bit. He is a big body. He does handle it well. But at the same time, you're going to have to give a little bit more resistance. And then, as a result, they force the help. John Newman's a second late. You get too far into the paint. That's an issue for the Tigers, at least so far. Ends up in an and-one opportunity. I want to say this is the first play in the second half. But this was actually not a bad defensive possession. But I'm going to go ahead and talk about this a little bit. Look, Alamir Dawes leaves his feet. This is a high-level pass. He went from opposite block to opposite help. Now, I want you to pay attention to one thing. Watch their closeouts, how high they close out. If they do a great job rotating and their effort is good, that's all great and good, but eventually you have to stop the ball or you stay in scramble situations. Here's another example of that. Excellent pass by Alvarado, ball goes out. Bad closeout by John Newman, forces another help situation. They end up getting the ball back. That's an open shot, out of control. Another help situation. This was the first play of the second half. It ends up in a miss. You like the effort. You love the effort. This is the sense of urgency that they need to have the entire time. But all that sense of urgency is for naught, Faxon, if they don't close out properly because they just continue to draw help situations.
Yeah, and even in that, like you said, I think Bub Parman had an open three ball there that he could have taken. Usher probably could have pulled it from the corner. And they did have a sense of urgency on this play, but like you said, they passed up multiple open shots there. And I'd just like to see more of the Clemson team on defense, effort and communication-wise, like you were saying, that we saw in the first 10 games, because this is not the team we were accustomed to seeing.
No, absolutely not. And I do have one more possession to show. This is the last one. This was the story of the game. There were a lot of people saying, why aren't we getting up? Why aren't we pressuring? Why aren't we pressuring? I'll tell you why they weren't pressuring. They were turning the ball over in the half court, and they couldn't get up and establish their defense.
Or making enough shots to pressure.
Well, they did. They shot 52% and 50. We have to admit.
Didn't have enough possessions to pressure.
That's probably a good one. Yeah. They didn't have enough possessions. But they did shoot the ball well when they didn't turn it over. But 20 turnovers, that's going to win you no games. Unless you were literally flying up and down the court and having 110 possessions, which never happens. You have to do a better job taking care of the ball because you weren't able to set your defense. So here's Georgia Tech, gets a turnover, and they're off to the races. Again, communication's not where it needs to be. Creates a closeout situation. You're having to help. Clyde has to drop. Ends up with Mike DeVoe for three. Look, this team is going to be fine if they completely buy in to the little things. They've skipped over the little things a little bit as far as closeouts are concerned, as far as talking are concerned, and that's where your senior leaders have to come back into the fix. Jonathan Bear could do that a little bit better. Amir Sims needs to be a little bit more forceful in the way he's talking to his teammates, and they need to be better overall on the defensive end, or else it's going to get ugly in a hurry, Faxon.
Yeah, and specifically on Saturday, where Clemson travels down to Tallahassee to play Florida State, if they give this sort of effort on defense against Florida State, they're going to give up 80-plus points again. There's just no really other way around it because they have that much talent to where it's going to get ugly quick if Clemson does not come to play on Saturday. So hopefully we see first 10 games Clemson on defense where you keep them in the 60s and Clemson plays a good enough game on offense to win. I don't know, based off the last two games, if I can see that happening, but I hope I'm wrong.
I know that Florida State has been playing unbelievable. We're going to talk about them a little bit later, but it has been rough sledding these past two games, and a lot of it's because of effort-related things. They finally got their offense back on track minus the turnovers. The turnovers are a no-brainer, but offensively, they're making shots. They're sharing the ball pretty well, and you had some good offensive performances. But it's not going to matter if you're not doing the little things defensively, and you're undersized anyway. It's going to make it really hard going down to Tallahassee. They need to focus on the little things going into the weekend, and if they do, they should be okay. But we did have a couple of questions. I figured we'd talk the questions this weekend, but right now, Faxon, what do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Does that sound good? All right, and I want to ask you this because I think I agree with it. Is this the weakest year for ACC hoops that you can remember? When's the last weak year?
Weakest year in recent memory, maybe when it comes to like the top tier teams, like Duke's on a down year, UNC's on a down year. You might not have as much top tier talent, but I do think the middle of the pack is stronger than it's ever been. It's just that every team is a middle of the pack team. So it's a weird dynamic because I feel like no one is creating separation right now to show that they're like the best team in the conference or the head honcho. So it's a strange dynamic.
Yeah,
this is definitely a down year for top tier talent, though. There's no runaway number one team. There's no team that I think is going to be a 1 or even a 2 looking at it right now in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, after looking at it this weekend, I think there's 2 teams that they're going to end up competing for the ACC championship. I think it's Florida State and I think it's Virginia. Those 2 teams in particular have shown that Virginia is doing it in a different manner this year, but they're still going to be able to guard well enough to be able to hold down what they try to do defensively. And if they're able to score 75 points, Virginia's going to win a lot of games. The other one's Florida State, and they're playing really well without some of their best players. The last 2 games, Scotty Barnes missed, they go and win. This weekend, this past week, they played at Louisville, minus Anthony Polite. They go up there and win big. This Florida State team is to be reckoned with, and it's going to be an interesting game this weekend in Tallahassee.
And don't get me wrong, they're an extremely talented team, but you got to just tip the cap to Leonard Hamilton. Seems like we're talking about them every single year now as a top team in the ACC. I mean, they won the ACC last year in the tournament after the cancellation, but this is just another fantastic year for Florida State. I'm really glad Clemson got a win over them early in the year because that's going to look really good come tourney time to be able to say, hey, we beat Florida State. So hopefully replicate that performance on Saturday, get 2 wins against Florida State in an ideal world.
Yeah, going back to Clemson's game, if they don't turn it up defensively and they don't take care of the ball against Florida State, it's going to be brutal because, one, Florida State doesn't run a ton of stuff offensively. They're going to focus on dribble drive. They're going to focus on things to get their big guys, big athletes downhill. The only one that'll take a few tough shots is M.J. Walker. Outside of him, this Seminoles team is a bunch of guys that try to get downhill into the paint to where they can use their size to create problems. Polite's been playing well, missed last game. I don't know if it's I don't know if he's going to play next game. It's up in the air, but he's a 50+% three-point shooter. They have weapons everywhere. Raekwon Gray has been a problem. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But going back to Clemson, the small things defensively, the small things in transition, even after makes, talking on defense is crucial, and guarding the ball is crucial. They were guarding the ball on an extremely high level to begin the year. Now, like Alamir Dawes is going for shot fakes, like I showed you. John Newman's going for shot fakes, and they're giving up backdoor cuts. Coach Pastner deserves credit, though, because he is setting guys up to score successfully. That little Princeton offense is not an easy guard. There's backdoors everywhere. There's a lot of guard over actions to where there's guard-to-guard screens. They can do several different actions off of that. Georgia Tech's not an easy cover, but you want to see your effort get a little bit better, especially going down to Tallahassee, where it's going to have to be, or it's going to get pretty embarrassing pretty quick.
Definitely agree with those points. And I think this is 4 losses in a row now to GT, which is not a great thing. Pazner's got Brad's number right now. Hopefully that can change next year, but I think it's 3 losses in the pavilion down there, 4 overall straight because they beat us last game of the year last year.
And they hit 15 threes.
They did.
And as a result,
they shot ridiculous from 3.
And they got wide open simply because Clemson was overhelping, bad closeouts, overhelping again. They were getting wide open shots. It resulted in kind of a tough slate all the way around. Clemson defensively just, it's like the effort, like they were trying, but because they weren't talking, it amplified their issues. And because they weren't guarding the ball, it amplified their issues, as I show you with those few clips. But transitioning to the next portion of our show, Big Faxons, underrated player of the week. Big Fax is going to make his way up to the board here. And he's got a good one this week. A guy who plays for who I think is going to be the next head coach of North Carolina basketball, Wes Miller. And I'll let you take it from here.
So this week we've got Isaiah Miller from UNC Greensboro. You can see his stats right here. This year he's averaging 19 points, 7 boards, 4 assists, and 2 steals, and shooting 47% from the field, which is good for a guard. When you see the accolades, they speak for themselves. This guy's won 2 Southern Conference Defensive Player of the Year awards right now. He was the 2019-2020 SoCon Player of the Year. He's made 2 all-conference tournament teams and 2 all-tournament teams overall. This guy is one of the best defensive players in the country that can also score, rebound, and create for others. Fantastic player. And in my opinion, probably the best player in the Southern Conference.
Yeah, I think it's up there along with the guy that you profiled a few weeks ago in Furman.
Noah Gurley.
Noah Gurley, who's pretty good as well. But this guy's an excellent athlete. He does a little bit of everything. He's obviously shooting the ball pretty well. Not necessarily a great three-point shooter, but somebody who continues to get into the paint, create for others, and he's such a terrific athlete that Wes Miller just puts him in all kinds of different situations. And Isaiah Miller, a heck of a player, good pick. Wes Miller, though, I think he's holding out, don't you?
Yeah, I think he could get the UNC job eventually.
I think that could be somebody moving forward that Carolina, as soon as Roy retires, I think that's the reason that he's pulled his name out of a couple of
and
situations.
they're in the mix every year in the SoCon, so and they've made a couple tournaments as well. Should have won a tournament game a couple years ago, so he's definitely got an impressive resume.
Yeah, he's probably going to have to win a game in the tournament this year, if not next year, in order to finally get that situation underboard. Thank you, Faxon. Isaiah Miller, good pick. He's a good player. He's going to be a pro. At what level, I don't know, but he's going to be able to collect some checks for sure. I think he's an interesting prospect, probably a little undersized. I believe at 6'1", about 195 pounds, big body guy, but 6'1" guys in the NBA are having a hard time. There's not many of them.
At the minimum, he can just harass people on defense. And he can get to the cup and pass as well. So he will definitely find a way to make money playing basketball.
Yeah, he'll collect some checks for sure. But moving on, Clemson wasn't the only team who played this week. There were a couple other stompings that occurred. We can talk about those a little bit right now. Interesting week. We're going to start with Pitt and Duke. I love this Pittsburgh team. Coach Capel has his guys playing a gritty style of basketball. They are tough. They're hard-nosed. They're led by Xavier Johnson. And like we said earlier, Justin Champagnie, All-ACC Player of the Year material. Him along with Kevin Aluma. To me, the ACC Player of the Year is going to happen to whoever leads his team the furthest between him and Aluma. I think Aluma's been fantastic. I think Champagnie's been fantastic. But those are two guys right there that I think are quality guys. And I knew one thing, and I tweeted it out as soon as the game started. Duke started the game in 2-3 zone, or 3-2 zone, rather. As soon as I saw that, that's Coach K's version of throwing up the white flag to where he's not going to be able to get those guys to play man-to-man defense. We knew that with Matthew Hurt a little bit. They did have a fantastic performance from Jalen Johnson, however.
Yeah, and like you said, the zone from Coach K kind of reeks of desperation to an extent. It's just he knows that he doesn't have the guys to be able to guard up 1v1 for the entirety of the game. And we've seen Duke has struggled on defense the entire year, especially Morgan's teams. I think Illinois had close to 100 on them early in the year, and Michigan State scored a bunch of points on them as well. And right here, Pitt, more of a defensive branded, like you said, they're hard-nosed, but they got their 80 in this game, which was very impressive, led by Champagnie. So Pitt could be an underdog force. So I think there's a chance they could try and get a tourney bid if they keep this form up. So
I think it's close. Yeah. I think it's close. They're tough. They're a little undersized, but they're undersized wings, especially Champagnie and some of those guys. Odise Tony, they are some tough dudes. 6'5" and 6'6" wings that get down there and get you close to 7 to 12. Champagnie's case, 12 rebounds a game. That's what he's averaging right now. He's getting 12 rebounds a game. Odise Tony is getting 7 or 8. I mean, this is a big guard bunch that rebounds. I didn't know how I was going to say that. Big guard bunch that rebounds really well. Champagnie, and when he's shooting a 3-ball like he did against Duke, he is going to be a problem for everybody involved. That was kind of the one hole in his game coming into the year. He was the best returning sophomore in the entire ACC. He's obviously showing out right now. But Duke, there's still problems. I'm telling you, you're still working through Matthew Hurt, but they changed it up a little bit, and I've called for this. You needed to start working through Jalen Johnson a little bit more. Why? Because Matthew Hurt, when he gets it, he's going to attack the goal. He's not looking to pass to anybody. Jalen Johnson's more of a mixture of other players to where he's going to be able to get downhill, and then he finds guys. He's going to finish a lot around the rim. He shot it better this game. Listen to this stat line. After they start running offense through him, 24 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists. He fouled out the last 3 minutes of the game when Duke was making their run. Jalen Johnson's a problem, and he made everybody else better. Wait for him to start exploding, expanding his game. If he shoots the ball better, Duke's going to be a lot better, and he made life a lot easier for a lot of the Blue Devils, specifically DJ Stewart, who was able to get in some catch-and-shoot opportunities, as well as Joey Baker. Yeah. Joey Baker, who was able to get a couple of catch-and-shoots as well.
Yeah, and like you said, there's some very glaring issues with Duke on defense, even if Jalen Johnson could emerge on the offensive end. But I think they'll win a lot more games if they play through Jalen Johnson like you've been calling for. Seems like he's fully healed from that. I think he had like a stress fracture in his foot. He seems to be completely back now, as I saw him throw down a very ferocious dunk during this effort. I think that there's a chance Duke could go on a little bit of a run with their upcoming schedule and get back in the talks for could they compete in the ACC. But realistically, I see this as an 11-9, maybe 10-10 team in the ACC that's probably going to get a 7 or an 8 seed in the tournament. And I just can't see them getting any higher because of their defensive struggles. And if they prove me wrong, I'll eat that. But I'm not seeing anything from them that makes me see, oh, this team's going to get into a top 4 seed come March and be able to contend like they usually do. I just don't see it this year.
Yeah, Jeremy Roach hasn't been as good as what they thought he was going to be. A lot of people were comparing him to a Kyle Lowry type of impact guy. He hasn't been that.
And Moore's been bad still, too. It's just
he had one explosive game to beat Wake Forest.
Yeah.
Other than that, he struggled this year, and he's been relegated to the bench. And I'm curious to see what they're going to do. I thought Patrick Tepe, grad transfer from Columbia, I thought he came in and gave them good minutes. They're really missing that beast at the 5 position. You wonder how they're going to move forward with those guys. Also, Carolina and Wake Forest. It was actually a pretty close game, but some of their good players got better. I mean, Wake Forest, they're starting to kind of come along. They're playing hard. Their effort's good. But Carolina, talent-wise, is on another space. Only a 7-point win. I think that Wake Forest actually beat the spread in this game.
Wake is becoming the kings of the competitive loss plus cover combo, where they hang in the game and they cover the spread. And you're like, you got to tip your cap at the effort. They just can't get over that hump. And like we said, once Steve Forbes is able to get a full year of recruiting and get his guys and be able to coach them up to where he wants, I think we will see strides from this Wake Forest team. But the fact that they're hanging in and competing against all these top ACC teams really deserves to be commended, and there are bright things coming in the future for this program.
Okay, so for the season finale of this, I want to go through like all my breakout potential players and things of that nature, just so we can kind of go through them. I picked Isaiah Musius for Wake Forest. And he has been really good. He's hitting tough shots. He's getting it in the mid-post. He's a little skinny to be a traditional big man, but he's a pretty good ISO player. Ended up with 27 points, 7 rebounds, throwing assists in. He's making tough shots over North Carolina's super bigs, if you will. But Carolina had some guys play. Baycott ended up with 18, 6 and 3, passing a little bit from the top of the key. But Caleb Love had 20. And this Carolina team,
they run through Caleb Love. If Caleb Love plays well, they have the chance to win every game they play. But if Caleb Love doesn't play well, they're going to lose more games they're going to win. They just really need him to step up. Yeah. It's like the Cole Anthony clause of last year.
I think that's a good point. I don't know that he's going to have the ball in his hands as much as Cole Anthony, but Anthony Harris coming back against, I think it was Florida State, and he played well. I think that gives somebody that can make it a little bit easier for Caleb Love. Played well against Florida State, and then you kind of see the game's starting to come to him a little bit easier. And I told a lot of people at the beginning of the year, this Carolina team is going to be as good as Caleb Love gets because he's the one guy that can really get downhill and finish among the trees. I really like that young individual, but he needs somebody to help him out. This is still a young backcourt.
And they've got Leaky Black coming off the bench, and he's provided some scoring sparingly, but I don't know if he can be that second option that you can rely on game in, game out.
No, I don't think so. I think it's a combination of R.J. Davis and Caleb Love, but I think Anthony Harris is the guy that's going to be able to make things easier for this Tar Heel team. He's just got to get healthy. You can't just throw a guy who had 2 major knee surgeries out to the Wolves and be like, hey, go get it. That's a difficult situation for him, and you can't do that to a kid who hasn't played that long. I was hoping he would play more against FSU. I don't see it. You can't play more than 10, 15 minutes a game right now just for health reasons.
Yeah.
Miami, Syracuse. I knew that was going to happen. I called it before it was going to happen because Chris Lykes hasn't been playing. Cameron McGusty, another 3-point shooter that they would have needed. He played very sparingly because of a hamstring issue. He's trying to rush back, and I've had a hamstring issue. I've ripped my hamstring my last year playing. If you try to come back too soon, you'll just rip it again. It is a reoccurring injury. He needs to take his time getting back. But you can see this Miami team, I don't know that they're going to be able to fix it, Faxon.
It's too many devastating injuries to key players too early in the season. And we're getting to the point where you're getting blown out by the Syracuses of the ACC, where I'm saying, like, even when they get healthy, are they going to be able to compete against these top teams? and I just can't see it right now for Miami, which sucks because I thought they were going to be really good to start the year, and I still think if they would have had Likes and McGusty the entire season, that this would have been a team that competed for a tournament bid. It's just kind of disappointing to see how they're going out right now, and I feel bad for Larranaga because I think he's a really good coach as well.
Not to mention Wardenberg.
Yeah.
Who hasn't played? Rodney Miller, who hasn't played. Earl Timberlake, who didn't. I think he played a little bit that game, but he's been struggling with injuries all year. At some point, like, you can't have this many injuries this many years in a row. There's something missing, or there's some level of
need a new
oversight.
health staff or something.
Yeah, it's some level of oversight. That can't happen. I mean, a coach is as good as his players. I know coaches like to take a lot of credit, yada, yada, yada. The coach is as good as his players. You have to get the right guys in there. And if you're playing with your second unit the majority of the year, you're going to end up with a bad record. I'm a little disappointed. I hope Miami was going to be better, but I don't see it. I don't see there's any way to right the ship unless Chris Likes comes back in a hurry.
And it's weird because, like, I remember it was like week 1 or 2 of the season, and every single game he was questionable. So we're sitting here as fans, we're saying, okay, Likes is questionable, probably going to be back next week. And it's just been a never-ending cycle of questionable because he was questionable for his last game against Syracuse. He was ruled out as a game-time decision. So hopefully he's back next week, but I feel like we've been saying that for 4 weeks now, where maybe next week is where Chris will play, and he just hasn't played.
Syracuse looks good, though.
They do look good.
I will say this. Quincy Guerrier has stepped up. He had 8 boards against them. Obviously, they're a little thin across the front line. Anthony Walker was good for Miami. I think he has the potential to be a pro later on down the line, but Syracuse looks good. Buddy Boeheim, Joe Girard, they have some weapons. They have shooters. Alan Griffin, who transferred from Illinois, who became eligible this season. They have a bunch of guys who can knock down shots, and not to mention Marek Dolezaj, who is excellent in finding his teammates all over the floor. This is a good Syracuse team. I still think they're going to be middle of the pack though because they're playing the zone, and I feel like college basketball has caught up with the zone a little bit because everybody shoots it.
Yeah, and hopefully Clemson, when they play Syracuse, can have a not turnover performance, but shooting performance replicable to the Georgia Tech game. If they shoot 50% from 3, they're going to hammer Syracuse. Because that zone's not going to force many turnovers. They're just trying to force you into difficult shots.
Yeah, that was one of my points, again, when we were talking about how Carolina didn't turn the ball over against Syracuse, because nobody turns the ball over against Syracuse. They sit back in that zone, and they make you shoot over the top. You're just not going to turn it over. I don't think high schools will turn it over against that.
Also, I feel like Dolezaj has been there for 15 years at this point. It seems like they roll that guy out every year.
Yeah, he's been really good.
He's taking strides every year in his game.
He needs to be able to shoot the 3.
Yeah.
For him to have the career that he could have, if he's able to shoot the 3, he's pretty dynamic because he's got so much length and athleticism. He passes it well. But if he doesn't shoot the 3, he's going to be in trouble, especially when he enters the next stage of his career. That could be an issue. But I had somebody who's a friend of mine, Gabe DeVoe, asked a question, going back to Clemson a little bit. He asked, tough slate coming up, next 6-game stretch, FSU, Boston College, Duke, Carolina, Cuse, and then Georgia Tech. Predictions over that stretch and a few things to clean up in your opinion. I already talked about that. I don't think they're far off, Fax, and I think they're making shots. Don't turn the ball over. Get a shot attempt up. Communicate on defense. I think that's the thing that they need to focus on the most. But predictions over that stretch, that is a tough few-game stretch. There we go. Like that, don't you? Like that, don't you?
That's a nice graphic work there. I want to say 3-3, and I want to be optimistic and say that Clemson can return to form and beat BC #1. I think that's an important game because if you fall to 3-5 in the conference, just assuming a loss against Florida State, then you enter dangerous territory going on Tobacco Road back-to-back because you're not going to get any calls up there if we're just being frank. So I think the BC is a must-win game, and then if you can win 2 of the remaining 4, I think you're in good shape for the rest of the ACC schedule. I would circle that Syracuse game as a game I think Clemson could win and will win, and I think they will win 1 of 2 of Duke and Carolina. I would be a fool to predict them to beat Georgia Tech, though, after what I saw last night. Hopefully, by that time.
So you think 3-3?
I think 3-3 is a realistic prediction here. 3-3. And that would leave Clemson at 6-6 in the conference through 12 games, and I think that would leave them at 12-6 overall. 6-6 in the conference, 12-6 overall.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. This is going to be a tough stretch. They need to compete against Florida State better than they competed the last 2 games. You need to be able to get your guys. It's a big momentum game for Clemson. More than ever, you need to compete, You need to up your communication. You need to play better defense. You need to really guard the ball because Florida State, not overly complicated. Last game against Florida State, Clemson out-rebounded the Seminoles by 15. They're going to have to do the exact same thing. They're going to have to be more physical, though, because the Noles are at home. I think this is going to be tough. At Tallahassee is always a difficult place to play. I think it's going to be a difficult place to win. Right now, do I see them winning in the manner in which they play? No, I don't. I do think they could get back on the right track against Boston College. Boston College has struggled all year. We want to talk about a team who had some sliver of hope after having some good competitive games with their guard play, get smacked by Florida. Ever since then, it's been a rough sledding for the
Clemson
Boston
should score
College
80
Eagles.
on this team. This should be the bounce back game. Like, I know Clemson's already bounced back offensively as far as shooting percentages go, but Clemson should score 80 on this team 100%. There's no excuse not to, the way they're playing defense right now. They don't guard anyone.
And they're going to really need to win that game. You want to talk about must-win
Boston
of
College.
the season? Boston College is your must-win game of the season. You have to perform well. You have to get on track. Why? Because you're seeing Duke, you're seeing Carolina at home, you're seeing Syracuse at home. I think there's a chance. This is a bad matchup. Size against Clemson hasn't been a great matchup this year. That's going to be hard. But Tigers have shown the ability to rebound at home. Look at this game from the beginning of the year, out-rebounded Florida State, who's every bit as big as Carolina is. But that's going to be a tough matchup. Duke, away, you don't have the fans. I'm not completely convinced that you can't win that game. I think it's going to be tough, but you're going to have to guard a lot of different guys.
I'm concerned about Jalen Johnson in that game. I think there's a chance he could have a really big night, and it's one of those things where I haven't seen Clemson win up there recently in my lifetime, in my experience as a viewer, so I need to see it to believe it. It's kind of like the North Carolina calls from last year. Clemson, on paper, they match up, I would say, relatively well with them. And Matthew Hurt had an absolutely disastrous game last year against Clemson. So I want to say that they could do a good job handling him as well. It really is just going to come down to, can Clemson guard Jalen Johnson for 40 minutes and limit him?
Major Jonathan Bear game.
Yeah.
Jonathan Bear game.
He's going to have to be guarding Jalen Johnson more than likely. I'm assuming because Amir did such a good job on Hurt last year. I'm assuming Amir will be on Hurt again.
Yeah, and you're going to be able to attack Hurt defensively if Duke doesn't decide to go zone. I don't think they will because Clemson, they do have enough shooters.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily have a ton of guys that are going to try to dribble penetrate so quickly. I will say this. I think that's a winnable game. At Cameron this year, no fans, nobody breathing down your neck, nobody breathing down the official's neck. I think this is a winnable game. This is a winnable game. This one's going to be hard. You hope that you can score some points, not turn the ball over against Carolina, and then set your defense to play rugged against those young guards. You're going to have to shoot it really well against Syracuse. Everybody knows that. But with 5 out,
I think
and
they'll beat
Clemson playing,
Syracuse.
I think it's possible.
I think that Clemson's a better team than Syracuse, and I feel like I will have to see how these first couple games go, but that's a game, that and Boston College are 2 out of these 6 that I would say I'm confident going in towards, specifically because they're at home. Clemson plays significantly better at home regardless, but I think those 2 games are definitely the most winnable, and then I think if you get one of the remaining 4, maybe 2, you're in good shape.
Yeah, I think it's oh man, my future opinion. Thanks, Gabe.
That GT game is a huge question mark, though, based off what we saw yesterday.
I don't see GT happening because they have so many guards
Yeah.
that can attack the rim and do good things. Like that's the biggest question mark for me. Like, will you be able? My computer's going dead. I'm gonna have to hurry up. You see that up there? They have so many guys that can attack the paint, and they force so much help side. I think it's going to be difficult all the way around. I'm not sure I like Clemson against Georgia Tech. They haven't been able to beat them in a while. And freaking Michael DeVoe has been a problem every time they've played. He's had John Newman's number. I mean, he's just big. He's physical. He does a lot of different things. Syracuse, win. Carolina,
Coin flip.
coin flip. Duke, coin flip.
GT and Florida State are probable losses. BC and Syracuse are probable wins, and then Tobacco Road is coin flips. That's how I.
You're
do
going
it.
3-3.
I'm going to say 3-3. I think that's the
It's
most
hard for me
realistic.
to. It's hard for me to argue. I think 3-3, 2-4.
I would be happy with 3-3 because you'd be 500 at the conference with a favorable 8-game schedule going forward, and then you still got that incredible out of conference resume. But these last 2 losses really stung. Looking at these next 6,
It's insane to me that this is the game I worry about the most, and Georgia Tech is the game I worry about the most. Those
Yeah.
2, it's dribble penetration. It scares me to death with these 2 teams because they have guards that can get to the lane, and that's not where Clemson excels. They're going to excel with Nick Honor getting up and pressuring defenses. They're going to excel with Alamir Dawes getting up and pressuring defense.
Yeah, like you said for Duke, I don't see Stewart getting into the paint and being able to get by Honor and Dawes, so that doesn't really concern me. And Hurt doesn't concern me either. Roach, it's just, can you stop Jalen Johnson in that game? And if Clemson can limit him, I think they have a great chance to win up there in Cameron this year.
Yeah, it's hard for me to argue. I mean, it's hard for me to argue. I think 3-3, 2-4. And the only reason I'm saying that is because the manner in which they've been playing the past couple of days. I mean, do they have the talent to go 5-1, 4-2? Yeah, they do, but they're not playing.
Now let me pose you a question.
Sure.
If Gabe would have asked you this question about this 6-game stretch before these last 2 games, what would have been your prediction? Because I probably would have said 4-2 or 5-1.
I would have said 4-2 or 5-1. I thought that they would have played better.
Yeah.
Against.
I thought even in losses against these last 2 teams that it would have been more competitive and in a manner that would be more encouraging going forward, but this is the least confident I have felt in the team in a while.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough one. They do play Florida State. I feel bad about giving a scouting report right now because they've been so stinking good. I feel like I'm throwing different names. The only constant this season has been this guy, MJ Walker. This is moving forward into the game Saturday. 16 points a game. He's been unbelievably efficient. Balsa Koprivica has been a difference maker, especially against Louisville, against smaller teams. Look for him and Raquan Gray, who has been fantastic. What'd you say, 15 points?
15 points in his last 3 contests, and this is from a guy that did not score 15 all of last year, so he's definitely stepped up. We'll say, to Clemson's credit, did a very good job of limiting Raquan Gray in the first matchup. He shot 1 of 8 in that game, so if he's going to have another game like that, then maybe Clemson could compete. But if he's going to score 15, I don't see Clemson winning this game.
6'7", 265 pounds. He has been a problem for multiple teams all year. This is a Florida State team that's rolling. Ever since that loss against Clemson, they have just gone up and up and up.
It's Leonard, man.
Leonard, he just keeps them going. And if they get hurt, it's okay. Sadar Calhoun has played pretty well. MJ Walker has been phenomenal. They get Scotty Barnes back. They have so many weapons, and they pressure the ball, especially at home. Clemson's going to have to bring it. They're going to have to create offense for each other by dribble penetration because Florida State, they're going to get out, they're going to deny the passing lanes, and they're going to force you they're going to force you out of your offense. You're going to have to create for your teammates basically off dribble drive attacks, and it's difficult to do against their length.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we are proven wrong watching this game on Saturday, and Clemson has some sort of majestic bounce-back effort where everything clicks again, and Clemson gets a massive win, and the outlook on this team is more positive than ever. But just realistically speaking, don't see that happening. I'm just going to hope for a competitive performance where I don't feel bad about the team after the game, because these last 2 games I felt bad about the team after the game, and that's a sense I haven't had all season.
Well, it's not because of skill. It's because of everything else. It's because of effort. It's because of turnovers. It's things that should never occur because you're a senior-laden team. You have a lot of extra guys. You're deep. Supposedly, you're deep. You have to be able to capitalize on certain things. They weren't able to do it. I thought they might be able to wear down Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech played at their own pace. Small things, communication, defensive closeouts, go back to the basics, and you can compete, but it's hard to win down in Tallahassee. I've known that. I don't think I ever got a win down at Tallahassee when I was playing. It's a tough place to play. There's stuff going on up in the stands, the whole nine, but it's a tall task. I think it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, and Florida State shot 28% from beyond the arc in this first matchup against Clemson. Just for the way they've been playing lately, I see them shooting significantly better than that, which does not bode well for us, and especially the way we've been guarding. I mean, I think Virginia shot 50+% from 3, and then GT last night shot almost 55% from beyond the arc. So with the Florida State team that's been playing and shooting the ball at an all-time high for this season, coming in against the Clemson's 2 worst defensive performances on the year, Florida State at home, it's a recipe for a disaster. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I hope we're wrong. I hope we're wrong. We have any questions today?
I do not think we have any questions coming from the Facebook.
That's fine because my computer's about to die anyway, so that makes sense anyway. Guys, thank you for joining me. We're right at 45 minutes today. Obviously, it's not quite as fun when you're reporting on a loss or you're talking negative. I don't like to do that because I'm a positive guy. But Clemson plays Saturday. I will be online, live tweeting it, the whole line. Keep up with me. Follow me, Coach TO22 on Twitter. We can go back and forth about the game. Need the Tigers to play better. Small things, the little things. We'll get you back in the zone. This is Beyond 22 Basketball. Thank you for joining. I am Terrence Oglesby, and we will see you next week.